Welcome back to Creating Cooperative Kids. I'm your host, Bill Corbett. In my early days as a young adult, my employer asked me to become a school volunteer. So one afternoon a week, I would show up at the local elementary school to read aloud to a kindergarten class. At that time, I had no idea just how important my showing up at that school was for the early literacy of those children. According to the National Institute of Child Health and Human Development, early literacy is what children know about reading and writing before they actually learn to read and write. To give parents and teachers some guidance on effectively preparing them by reading aloud to children, I found the book Help Me Get Ready to Read, the practical guide to reading aloud to children during their first 5 years. The co-authors of this book are Susan Marks, a parent educator and elementary school teacher who writes and edits materials for major textbook publishers, and Barbara Kasok, a reading consultant and elementary school teacher who has developed national reading programs and materials, is also here. Thank you so much for being on the show. Now, correct me, the pronunciation of your last name, did I say it right?
Kasok.
Kasok, okay, well thank you so much for pointing that out. All right, so the first thing, I don't think parents understand the importance of reading aloud and preparing them for reading in the early years. So the first question is, why did you work together in creating this book?
I do, because we both have a passion for reading aloud to young children. We've done it in classrooms, we've done it for our own children and our grandchildren, and we've worked in education. Susan has worked in parenting field. So we put our heads together and said we want to share our knowledge with everyone so parents will realize how important this really is, and it's a simple thing to do.
Well, it's interesting, when I was a school volunteer in the city here years ago, and I'm talking in the 80s. But my employer was great because they would let me have the time off to go do that. As I said, coming out of the segment, I had no idea what I was doing. I thought I was providing community service, but it was more than that, especially after reading your book and realizing the importance. And I think our viewers may have the same perspective. They don't realize how important it is reading the storybook at night. Seems to be this thing that we do as parents, but it actually plays a greater role, doesn't it?
If I may read from a segment from our book, a brief segment, which is on the back cover, when we say reading aloud during the first 5 years of children's lives opens their ears to the sounds of words, their eyes to the wonder of pictures, their minds to new ideas, and their hearts to a love of books and learning. And this is what we want. All caring adults who read aloud to children, whether it's parents, grandparents, preschool, literacy volunteers, we want them to understand that the time that they spend with the little ones is helping them to connect with books, and that is so, so important.
And so what's the long-term effect?
Well, studies have proven that children who acquire the early literacy concepts and skills and also have feelings of competence and confidence will end up being more successful when it comes to learning how to read when they enter school.
Interesting, interesting. And the parents play such a key role in this. And as I mentioned in the show earlier, parents are so stressed, they're tired, and if they can at least give a little bit more time to reading aloud. And what I liked about your book, and what I like about your book, it's a guide. And I think a lot of parents know, well, I should read to my children, but your book helps them understand how to do it. Right. You give them really clear instructions, right?
We do, and the reason is because when you read aloud, you're not just reading a book, but you're engaging the child in a conversation about the book. That's the magic of reading aloud. And as you're doing that, there are strategies, both parenting strategies and reading strategies you can use once in a while to help your children acquire the early literacy concepts and skills. And it should be a joy. It should be, you should enjoy it, the children should enjoy it. And getting into the books and understanding what are good books to read aloud that will connect with the children. It's just a wonderful experience, and it will help all children be ready to learn to read.
So you've brought here today since the demonstration.
Yes. I have brought my blocks. These are the early literacy concepts and skills all children need to acquire to learn to read. And I tell a quick little story about the 3 little pigs. The first pig builds his house of straw. the wolf blows it down. The second pig builds his house of sticks, and the wolf blows it down. Third pig, house is built of bricks, and the wolf can't blow it down. And these are the early literacy concepts and skills that children need to acquire, and we can help them do it through reading aloud effectively and engaging them in activities that connect them to books and learning.
Now, what about, I noticed one thing when I was reading your book, it's important to create a nurturing environment for that, because, and I'm assuming if you build a nurturing environment, it's conducive for them to want to, what, imitate and learn, right?
Even before you can begin with the early literacy concepts and skills, both the child and the caring adult need to feel comfortable. And also the caring adults need to be positive role models in the children's lives. So what do we mean by a caring environment? It means having a place where you can read together, a comfortable place. That could be a reading corner or a reading chair. It might be making books accessible so little ones can go and get the books. It might be turning off the TV. And excuse me for saying that, or turning off your telephones. And really engaging the children in that one-on-one that they want. Children know when you're not giving them the one-on-one. So it's the creating the nurturing environment. It's serving as the good role model. It's taking them to story hours at the library. It's choosing to read when you have precious free time, so children can see that this is something that's worthwhile for them to engage in as well. So that is really, really important. What they say about quality parenting is that feeling of emotional connection, that the child feels good about being in the place and the adult feels good about being in the place. And those are the memories that you want children to carry with them through their lives, in that proverbial baggage that they carry with them.
You know, I've even gone to the extent where when I counsel parents, I tell them, get the televisions and computers out of the bedroom, but the one thing I allow in there is books. Because you know what, we can't force a child to go to sleep. Sometimes children will read a book, and parents are afraid, oh, that's going to keep her up. You know what? Relax over that. Because reading is okay. It's a calm, quiet kind of thing. And if you have any issues with it, just put a couple of books in there. I do want to ask you a question, because I know parents may have a question. Is there any impact to reading the same book over and over?
No. It's a great thing to do. If the child wants it, let the child lead the way. That's really important. And if a child wants to read the same book over and over again, that's wonderful, because they become familiar with it. They know it as a routine. They feel confident because they hear the same thing, and they will retell it.
I had a friend who actually, their child couldn't read, but had heard it so many times, he would sound like he was reading. I was amazed he was doing that. Listen, thank you so much for coming on. People can get more information for you at readaloudguide.com.
Right.
Correct?
That's
and,
right.
We've been showing your website. Tons of information there, and on you and your program, and helping parents. Parents, just take the measure to look it up, because they'll get great stuff. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Wouldn't it be great if parenting was predictable? Well, parents of multiple children have discovered that the things that worked with the first child don't necessarily work with the next. In my next segment, we'll meet a parent-child coach who has some great advice for parents raising polar opposite kids. Stay with us. We'll be right back after the short break.